Okay, hi everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Maybe someone can let me know in the chat if you can, or if you can't, then you won't. Yay! Thank you all for joining me. I think there's a chance that we might have a few more people come on board in the next sort of 5-10 minutes, which is fine. So thank you to everybody that's joining in. I'm glad that you can hear me okay. It's nice that we've got so many people from all different, really lovely. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to minimize my chat window, so it means that it's going to flash up at me to let me know if there are comments, but I'm not going to necessarily be looking at it all the time, so you'll just have to bear with me so that I can sort of go back to it every now and again. Just a couple of things before we get started properly. I have muted all of you because, like somebody said, it helps to enhance the quality of my audio and what you can hear if everybody else is muted. So the only problem is because I've selected to unmute yourselves, which I'll try and change now. Yeah, okay, done. So if at any point you suddenly can't hear me or there's an issue with the screen share, I've made it so that you can unmute yourselves. So please, can someone just sort of unmute themselves and shout at me and let me know, because I might not be aware of the chat box. Another thing just to say is that I will be recording this one so that you can watch it back, but also people that can't join us, they can watch it. But I will be pausing it at a couple of different points because I've had 2 of my students on my caseload very kindly give their consent for me to share some clips of them doing therapy sessions with me week before last. So obviously they're consenting to that, but they're not consenting to everybody across the UK and Ireland having clips of them. So I will pause it at that point. And yeah, just to reiterate that they've given their consent. Their parents are very keen to support us all during this time because they're very grateful that we're able to continue providing their therapy through an online platform. So hopefully it will bring the content sort of to life a little bit, and that was partly why I moved from GoToWebinar originally, because I couldn't get the audio on videos to work, whereas I can through Zoom. That will be helpful just to see it in action a little bit. Yeah, write any questions in the chat box and I will try to look at them as I go along. It depends how far off tangent I end up going. So yeah, let's get going. So some things that we'll cover. Let me just mute you all again. If you guys can just sort of try and check that you remain muted for me, that would be really helpful. But I'll also check in as and when I hear noises. Okay, so cover getting yourself ready. So in terms of things that we want to be thinking about, it's good practice before the teletherapy sessions. I'm going to just talk through briefly some of the features that you can use on Zoom. Obviously we've got people joining us from different organisations, not just the NHS, but I know that even with the NHS, different platforms being spoken about and different trusts saying yes and no to various options. But for me, we're predominantly going to be using Zoom. So if it's helpful, I'll just touch on some of the features of Zoom that I've sort of figured out over the last. I'm going to share with you some websites that are useful for teletherapy. So these are different websites, some of which are free, some of which are offering, like, you know, a 14-day free trial or whatever. And then there might be a small cost to it afterwards. But in terms of sort of ready to go activities, they're options at least add to our toolkit, even if we, you know, don't end up using them very often, or we just dip in and out of them. And then I'll show you what we, as in me and my team, have started to sort of learn and do over the last few weeks to adapt resources to deliver assessment and therapy to people on our case. By no means am I an expert. We've learned an awful lot in the last sort of 3 weeks or so, but if it's helpful to you guys and it gets other people sort of started, then, well, that's the aim of the game, really. So I'm not an expert, but hopefully this will be helpful to a certain degree for everybody. And finish off with a little bit of focus on the evidence base. But for those of you that follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen the infographic that I made at the weekend that sort of summarises a lot of the evidence, or at least points you in the right direction. So I might show you that at some point too. Okay, so things that we need to consider when we're getting started. So to think about, it probably might be sort of teaching you to suck eggs, so I don't mean it patronising or anything, but we need to think about how we dress for teletherapy. So we're effectively in the front room of our clients, so we need to be presenting ourselves in a way that we would in that face-to-face situation. Really important, we want to make sure that we've got a clean, appropriate background. So we want to try to limit the distractions in the background. So for example, you can't see me right now, but I just have a plain, boring magnolia wall behind me. No pictures or anything that can sort of be distracting or potentially cause more visual overload for the person that's looking at me through Zoom. But equally, we want to be thinking about where we're seated and where we put our desks. So for example, we don't want to be a window with curtains open, because chances are the person's just going to see our silhouette, and they won't be able to see us properly because of the glare that will be coming through the window. So sounds super obvious, but you know, even over this last couple of weeks doing more and more video calls, I have seen it for myself, and it does make it difficult, and sometimes you do people to just, you know, scooch over a little bit or whatever. So if we need to be mindful of that. Because obviously we work with people that might have visual sensitivities, they might have vision impairments, so we need to be taking all of those challenges into consideration before, and you know, we sort of do the teletherapy session setup phase. And then it makes sense again, but we want to be early for the meeting, so you know, 5-10 minutes early, giving yourself time to make sure that your audio and your video are properly working, that you're ready to go, you've got everything up on your desktop that you need, and you're set ready for when your client joins you in the video call. And then obviously we're all managing working from home a lot more at the moment with the current situation, and there's going to be different sort of potential distractions in our own environment, just like there will be for the client. But as far as possible, we need to try to make sure that we're in a quiet area, that we can limit as much as possible, and to make every effort, really, I guess, to be in a location in our home that can help people to hear us as clearly as possible. So it's just again about sort of managing those factors and just being mindful of them, and particularly I've put bottom here. So I use Outlook for work, and as soon as an email comes through, it makes a little notification sound. And that was one of the first mistakes I think I made in one of my first teletherapy sessions a couple of weeks ago, that it came through, it made that loud, sudden, unexpected noise, and my student didn't jump out their skin, but they and sat back a little bit, and for, you know, a moment it distracted them away from the activity, and that was my error because I hadn't shut down the Outlook. So just being mindful of not having applications open on the desktop or in the background that don't need to be for the, you know, while you're doing your therapy session. And then thinking about equipment, well, and again, because I've had a bit of lived experience in the very short period of time that I've been doing this, that, you know, we need to be aware of the equipment that we have available. We need to try to understand it the best that we can, and it's probably a bit of a learning curve for a lot of us, myself included, and not really technical, so I've had to learn an awful lot, but we want to make sure that we need, whether it be headphones, an external webcam, an additional keyboard or mouse, whatever, and also most importantly, as I experienced a couple of weeks ago, is think about whether you need to have a spare of certain things. So I've never used the internal webcam on my work laptop until three and a half, whatever, weeks ago, and then literally used it probably a handful of times and it suddenly broke. And I didn't have an external webcam, but I did have 2 teletherapy sessions booked in the next day, and it was just sheer luck that our IT department had some on site, and they happened to be on site in the same place that I was. So I think it's just being mindful of the equipment and having a backup if so that you've got that to hand should things go a little bit wrong. And then also just thinking not just about the sort of electrical equipment and what you need in order to do teletherapy, but also thinking about any physical items that you might need. So we are still going to try to keep the structure of our therapy sessions similar to what we would do face to face. We do mindfulness, so therefore if I usually would do bubble blowing with a student, then I need to have a pot of bubbles, and I've already spoken to their parent about them having some bubbles. So to the side of me, not only might I have my iPad, but I've also got the bubbles. So just thinking about what else you might be using. And then thinking about our clients, you know, we're delivering assessment therapy sessions to, you know, they need to have access to reliable Wi-Fi connected devices, whether that be a tablet, a phone, laptop, or desktop computer. And also they might need to have headphones and microphones. So I've one student who I'm doing speech sound work with, who is a fairly reluctant communicator. And so doing her teletherapy session when she doesn't speak very loudly anyway was quite tricky. And so by me asking her if she could say something again, and her feeling that pressure, she was even more reluctant to speak. So this solution is that we've sorted her out with a headset and microphone, so that just amplifies her volume for her without her having to sort of say or try and speak more audibly, when actually it's confidence that's part of the issue. So thinking about, you know, what they might need that's going to enable them to have successful teletherapy sessions and to help them feel more confident for the next time. And then one of the things that is prepare this this document to share with our families before their first teletherapy session. So it's just things to try to cue the parent and carer as much as anything into thinking about what they might need to do before their child has their teletherapy sessions. So again, things like what I've just been talking about, but from their point of view, and things that just cue them into a different way of thinking, because right now there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of stress and anxiety for a lot of people, including ourselves. And so this can be another thing that we might be adding on to what they've got to do, because they've now got to suddenly become a teacher, occupational therapist, and a GP or whatever. So if we can try to make it as clear, as simple and as achievable as possible, then they start to learn that routine of this is how the teletherapy sessions go, then hopefully that will reduce some of that anxiety. So we've been sharing this, and also something else that we have shared, which I'll just get up, so bear with me a second. Anybody heard that noise then in the background? That was my dog making like a snoring noise. Okay, so let me share this with you. So a couple of things that we've prepared, again, thinking about preventative measures following on from, hopefully you can all see this. Can you all see this thing called When Things Go Wrong During a Video Call? Yeah, brilliant, thanks Jessica. And yes, I'll share the resources, I'll come on to that in a minute. So we had a session with a student, went wrong because my assistant's laptop froze, broke, whatever. And so the student, unfortunately, ended up going up to their room crying. And then it wasn't until much later that afternoon that we were able to, sort of having rectified the laptop issue, that we were able to call her back and continue the session. And we happened to be in that situation where we're able to do that, but it might not be possible all the time for other people on this in this webinar. So we're thinking ahead to the future, and if this happens again, so we've prepared this sort of social story to go out with some pre-teletherapy resources that we're going to share with parents and carers. It just that you know, that might happen, it'll be unexpected, but it's okay. And then what we'll do is have a separate conversation, an individual conversation with the parent or carer, because it's not going to be one size fits all, and have a discussion about, if this happens, can we make a plan B that, you know, them X, Y, or Z, so that hopefully that will give them that different activity to move on to that we've told them is available beforehand. And then if things do go wrong, we've got that available, and it's something that will help them to transition away from an unexpected event, and hopefully cope with the emotions a little bit better. The thing that we've prepared, which hopefully you can see, is how I can prepare my body for learning. So can you see this? Someone type yes. Yeah, brilliant. So we've put this together again to share in that pack with just a few ideas of what they can do in the 1 to 2 hours before their therapy session to try to help them to start to feel grounded, and maybe potentially them a little bit if they're, you know, a bit excited, or there's a bit of maybe emotional sort of dysregulation going on. So we've just got a few very simple to do and achieve in this current climate activities. So drinking through a straw or a sports bottle, help with some heavy work tasks in the house, eat a chewy snack, for example, dried, give myself or ask somebody to give me deep pressure, for example, a hand massage, or do some yoga and deep breathing. And then there's a link to a website to get a little bit more information. So we're going to be sharing those things beforehand to try to be sort of, you know, prepared, and help our students to be prepared for potentially any unexpected issues, but also to be ready for the teletherapy session. Some other things that we might need to provide for people. So these are from keepsafe.org.uk. They were shared online last week. So they've got a few pages full of these sort of visual prompts. So it might be that some of these are really useful for certain people. I think, unfortunately, for some of my students, the sort of amount of support they need to learn the concept of how to use this might mean that it's a little bit difficult for them. But, you know, potentially for a lot of people, including those of you that work with adults, you know, these might be really helpful. You know, somebody maybe that's got aphasia or brain injury. So I think they're a really lovely resource, and they're free to download. I think I've included them in the Google Drive that I will share the link to. So you don't need to Google them too much because I've done it for you. And then also thinking about, do they need something to fidget with to help them focus? So I guess if we're going to think about how prepared they are for teletherapy, then that might not be too much of an issue. Nice to, you know, think about these things and sort of cover all bases, because actually if we would do a certain thing in a face-to-face session, then there's no reason why we shouldn't be thinking or potentially doing it in for a teletherapy session. Okay, so very quick note about consent. So links here on the slide.
Ellen, but you can't take all the internet.
One of them is from the is it Information Commissioner's Office, and the ICO, and then the other one is from NHSX, and this is currently the sort of most up-to-date information on consent and you know, this new way of working. But the general sort of consensus is that it's about being open and transparent. So it's, you know, it's the same as what we would ordinarily be doing, but we need to be clear about the risks and the benefits of teletherapy, and particularly when we think about maybe group therapy sessions. You know, the benefits actually, if we can continue to do a social skills therapy session in a pair or a small group, then that's great because we can practice our social skills in that group, and that's the aim of the game. But the risk is that there's potentially more data sharing because we've got, you know, somebody's home environment in the background. We might have a parent or carer or sibling suddenly run a student or whoever. So these things need to be communicated, and it needs to be open and transparent. What I will say at this point is that there are a few therapists that are working with RCSLT to work on some specific teletherapy guidance. So I'm helping with that, and we did have a meeting yesterday. So we are going to be doing this piece of work, and so that hopefully soon there'll be some formal sort of guidance published by RCSLT just to support all of us, so that, you know, we feel confident in terms of information governance, consent and assessing and various different things. So for now, I think these websites are really, but just so you're hopefully all reassured, there is going to be something coming from RCSLT in the very near future, all being well. Okay, so moving on, I forgot to say earlier as well, sorry, that I will upload these slides onto the Google Drive that I'm going to share the link to, so you will have them afterwards. Okay, so thinking about Zoom. So if you guys have up, then, oh, I think actually it looks like this on the iPad as well, if I remember rightly. You'll have this little box that comes up on your desktop or iPad. And there's a couple of ways that you can start a meeting. So you could click on this new meeting button, and it will take you into this black screen, or maybe if you've got your camera connected, you can see your face. And then you might want to invite somebody into the chat that way. So you would go to this invite button at the bottom here, and then it would bring up this box on the left-hand side. And it will have all your contacts in. So this is all of my work colleagues, hence the grey boxes. It's got some of their faces on. But equally, you could click on this bit here, which will take you to the box on the right where it says email, and you could send the information through an email to somebody to invite them, and it will invariably have this code here that's in the top left here in the other yellow circle. So that's the code, like what you guys would put in to join me in this. It would same thing. So you can start a meeting that way, or you might go to schedule, which is the option I'm tending to use most of the time. So you click on that. The main thing to note is that if you're going to schedule, because it brings up this box, which at the bottom has different calendar options, you must have, in terms of Outlook for these other options, but I have to have my Outlook open on my desktop so that when I go to schedule, that it can open up a calendar invite for me to send to whoever or save into my calendar. If I don't have Outlook open, then it just sort of like carries on processing, but it's not doing anything. In case you haven't already experienced that for yourself, that might be helpful instead of sitting there thinking what's going on like I did for about 10 minutes. So yeah, you choose when you want it to be, for how long, it will generate an ID. It will generate an ID number code thing automatically, unless you have a preference to have your own personal one. And then in terms of safeguarding, again, there will be something from RCSLT about this. We need to think about how we can safeguard the people that we are doing teletherapy with. And having a password is a really good way of doing that. It's something that I didn't do for this meeting, which when I on Twitter, I realised that I hadn't done it. And I'm not quite sure why. So, you know, dumb move on my part. But for teletherapy sessions, definitely have a password, because it means that when somebody goes to join, as you may already know, you'd have to put in the meeting ID, but then you'll be prompted again to put in the password. So it means that without that, you can in, even if you've somehow managed to get hold of the ID. And then you can choose whether there's going to be video and what sort of audio you're going to be using. So then it would come up letting you know when your next meeting is going to be, and you can just click on start to begin it. So then when you the video, you'll have these options come up at the bottom. So I've set my Zoom settings to mute me as soon as I join a meeting, and I don't have my external webcam plugged in, so therefore the video is not going to start. But if I wanted to mute or unmute myself, or stop or start the video, I would just literally click on either of these two things. Little arrow next to both of them just allows you to look at even more settings to do with your speakers and stuff. You can manage participants here. So mine at the minute says 84 people, and it's what I'm clicking on if I need to go and mute anybody. So it will bring up a list of all the people, and it will have like a little video or microphone next to their name, and that'll either be red or green, active or not. Come back to this one in a minute. The chat function, you probably all can figure that out because you're using it in this webinar. And then you've got this record function too. Sometimes there are 3 little dots when you're like, now I'm screen sharing. And so I have 3 little dots over this side of my panel. It's when I click on those that I have options to pause recording or start recording or whatever. But most importantly, I think it's probably this bad boy here in the middle. So this is what we're going to use to share our screen. So you can pause the share. So if I paused it now, all you would see is one screen. Whilst I go and sort of faff about and find what it is I want to change to, and then I would restart the share. So it's quite versatile, and obviously great for sort of making teletherapy interactive, and letting people see what's on your screen. So if you're an assessment resource or therapy resource, that's how we're going to make paper-based resources work for us in this current way. So thinking about screen share, when you click on this green button here, you'll get this box come up. You can choose to share your screen. It really means that your desktop would come up with whatever's going on that you've got open on your taskbar, and whatever you do on that, people can see. There's an inbuilt whiteboard, which is really good. So we've used this to do like a little game of hangman with a student. So that's really useful. And then there's options to connect to iPhone or your iPad. But then on the bottom here, it will come up with things that you have open on your desktop. So obviously this is a screenshot from when I first wrote this. So if I, if this was real life and I just wanted to share the information governance website with you, then I'd click on that and it would only bring up that one website. So I could faff about with anything else, but you would only see that chosen website, different to the screen share where the person can see whatever's going on. And then if you're going to share video, like I will in a bit, when you go to screen share, really important that you click these 2 boxes on the bottom left here, particularly if you want them to hear any audio. So this is the one you want to make sure is has a check in it, tick in it or whatever. So sharing your audio, and then you would just literally go to the bottom right there and click share, and it will start screen sharing. So I'm just going to quickly check the chat, bear with. So bear with me. Okay, so forward speech therapy. We have revised our, why is the word escaping me? It's in front of me, consent form. So bear with me a second. We have revised our that we would ordinarily use. And so I'm just loading it, sorry, it's just taking a moment. So it's not changed that much, because in terms of the reasons why we might want to take photos or digital recording, that's pretty much, you know, the reasons stay the same. It's just to reflect the fact that obviously during this period of time we need to change the way that we're working. So hopefully you can see that. This is something that we're going to be sending out just to identify that, you know, we're being open and transparent, that we're having to change our delivery model in order to still be compliant with education, health and care plans, but also to adhere to government advice. You know, this is what we're going to have to do. And then these are the reasons that we might need to take images or video content, which are the same as before. And then that's it really. They obviously need to opt one. So we're going to send this out as part of that. Oh, sorry, I just realised I wasn't sharing. Hopefully you can all see that. It's been a long day, sorry. Yeah, so hopefully they will opt in or not to the relevant options here that, you know, suit their preferences, and then we'll log that in our usual way in our therapy notes, and that, you know, we can then revisit it if needs be, or obviously if things go back to some sort of normal, then we'll review it again. So it's literally just one page. And then what we've also done today is make an easy read version, because we had an easy read version. So tweak that so that it reflects the new wording for the new situation. And we'll make sure that we get for their first teletherapy session. With Zoom, is there an option for Zoom to record the session content, potential breach? So again, yeah, you can record the content. I'll talk you through that in a minute. And I think, again, so long as you're open and transparent and you've explained why you would want to do it, what it would be used for, and the person is consenting to what you've told them, and then, you know, obviously, as we would usually, you don't do anything else with it that you've been transparent about, and then you log that in your official way, then hopefully you're covering yourself in the way that's being recommended. Oh, that's brilliant, Tina. I think I did hear something about that. Having a password will become default after the 4th of April. Or has, it's already the 7th, isn't it? Brilliant. Yeah, so being clear, yeah, about why you're doing it, how long you're going to keep it for, no longer than necessary. I don't know about if Zoom wants to record. I imagine there's restrictions in place for that. So in terms of RCSLT, they can't advocate for, if that's the right word, a particular platform, so that they need to remain neutral. But what I think the work that we are hoping to achieve through the guidance is to identify, you know, these are different sorts of platforms. Maybe this is a bit of a comparison between them, and then individuals or organisations can go away, take that information and do what they will with it, with what will work for their particular setting. Oh, hello, Rafia. yeah, so I think there's been a lot of stuff in the press lately about sort of people hacking into Zoom, and I think taken a bit of a beating really, because there's been such an influx of users. But there's lots of different measures that you can take. I've lost the link and I need to re-find it, but there was a really nice article shared for teachers about safeguarding like pupils online, and a lot of the content was totally applicable to us, but I need to re-find it because that was really in terms of simple ways that if you're just mindful of, you can enhance the security on any of these platforms. So one of the features that that you can do on here, but I haven't figured it out yet, is that you can somehow, I believe, lock the meeting. So once it's, no one else can join. So, okay, I'm going to just move on so I can carry on. Sorry, don't mean to do that. Okay, so thinking about how you can engage your client through active participation. There's a couple of features on Zoom that lend themselves to that. So first of all, there is this remote control. So it basically enables you to give control of your screen to the client or a participant from a group. The client needs to click on the screen to activate control. So this is something that I found particularly important to try to support my students with, because they have autism and learning disabilities. So the concept, the sequence that they need to follow, and the following instructions in order to know to click their mouse, that's taken us a little bit of time with some people, because they have to do that in order to activate having control of your screen. And then likewise on an iPad, on my own iPad, it comes up on mine with like a little mouse symbol, and I have to press on that so it activates control on the screen. So you can regain control manually, so going back onto this bit that's circled in red here and removing control. I think it says abort control and you select whoever has control, or you can press Control Shift and G and that will just automatically stop it. So if you've got somebody who's getting a little bit carried away or a bit overexcited, and they're moving the mouse so quickly that you can't use yours to control it, then hopefully you can use that shortcut to bring control back into onto you. And then another really great feature is this annotate feature. So you click on this and it will bring up this smaller bar here, and you've got all these different options of things that you can do on the screen. And then in terms of pictures and images, obviously assuming that you've got consent, if once you've finished, whatever activity is on this slide, and I've got Joe Blogs to answer it by annotating on there, and there's all these lovely examples of their work that they've done. If I click on save, it will give me the option to save that basically as like a screenshot. So I might have my face in the top right corner, but I'll also have whatever else is on the screen with all the annotations, and I can then obviously save that. So for me, that might be something that with their consent I might share in the end of year report, or it might be something that I share with their consent at their next DHCP review meeting. So it's a really nice feature that literally you just click on that, brings instantly, it saves a screenshot. Before you move on to like your next slide or next activity, you must make sure that you click on clear to get rid of all the annotations, otherwise they stay on the screen, but obviously you're moving whatever's going on in the background, which is obviously going to be a bit confusing potentially, and maybe could be a sort of overload for some. So make sure that you clear it, because I'm just telling you this because I didn't find it out until I made the mistake, so it would have been useful to have known beforehand. Okay, just make sure that I haven't missed anything to tell you on that bit. So I'm going to pause the recording for a second because I'm going to show you a little video clip of what happens when it goes a little bit wrong, which is okay because it's so bear with me a second. Recording. Okay, so yeah, when it goes wrong, I've shown you that clip, and this is this and the laptop freezing situation. These are the two reasons that sort of sparked our ideas about what we could do to try to be preventative and to help our students to cope with when and if things go wrong. So having activities ready, writing the social story, thinking about what they can do in the hour or so before their session from a sensory processing point of view, and that will help them to potentially feel calmer and more grounded. So therefore, if something does go wrong, it's easier to cope with it. But also thinking about the space. Some of the evidence talks about the success of teletherapy, and one of the factors that's been researched is how we as clinicians help people and how we cope when things go wrong and manage our fears, if you like. So I think that's a really important point, and with me, because I work with a lot of children in our children's homes who have experienced trauma, that it's all about relationships. And so actually, my sessions that when they're face to face have an element of co-regulation and that relational connection and or sensory processing sort of input. So why would that be any different when they're at home and there's lots of other stuff going on in the world, and their parents or carers may or may not be regulated themselves, may not be able to right now if they're stressed. And so actually it makes sense that part of the success of teletherapy would be on us and how we conduct ourselves, just like we would in that face-to-face situation. So I think sort of trying to keep as calm as we can, thinking about our tone of voice and how we can co-regulate with somebody is a really sort of strong strategy that we can use. And then also thinking about finding an alternative way of doing the same thing. So I can't use the text box on the annotate thing on Zoom, but I can find, use a text box if I do it on a PDF. So I'll show you that later on. And then a note about maintaining routine. So again, this is our bread and butter as speech and language therapists. But for me in my context, trying to maintain routine where possible, that for me and my students looks like using a visual timetable. It looks like doing mindfulness activities to be supported by the parent. And it looks like doing similar activities, just presenting them slightly differently. So again, there's still that routine and structure that's familiar, even if the content or the fact that we're not face to face is very different, that actually some of what they see through the screen reminds them of what they would be doing if they were with me or Gemma, our assistant, in their weekly college session. So I've got a couple of examples that I'm going to show you. So bear with me a second. So one of the tools that we use in our college is the zones of regulation. So we now have them up in all of our classrooms, and everybody's got their own magnet photo, and they can move themselves around the zones of regulation and check in throughout the day. And so we want to keep that going. So literally using this Word document, hopefully you can see this. Just by using Word, we've copied and pasted in the zones, which is, it looks how it would look if they were in the therapy space. And then what we would have is our photos. So for the purposes of this, I've just got mine, but what I would have is mine, maybe Gemma's, and then the students. And we've had a couple of parents who have said that they'll send us their photos. So then actually as a group activity, like what we would usually do in our face-to-face session, we can continue to do that through teletherapy, because in face-to-face sessions, you know, we're ready for learning and for doing our therapy activities. And we also incorporate the social skills development of turn taking and initiating, practicing, asking people how they are, what have you. So we can do exactly the same stuff, it just looks different. And then we can keep it in edit mode so that we can just move the pictures around whilst we're talking about our emotions, so we can continue that piece of work. And then the other thing that we have done, which I need to share with you through a video. So just go, okay. So there's a few examples of ways that we're trying to maintain routine. So thinking about making use of ready-to-go materials. So what I've done, like I mentioned earlier, is I set up a Google Drive so that you can access some resources that I've got. So I'm just going to quickly show you. If it will let me. You can see this Google Drive. So there's various different things in here, and I am going to add a couple more things in here. But this document in the bottom left here, this is the document that is going to have all the web links on it to some of the things that I'm about to show you. So just so you know, the answer to any questions about it is yes. I've got them written down and they are there. So I'll share that with you in a bit. So yeah, there are things. I'm not going to show you every single one of them, but that's why I'm letting you know that this is here with other ideas captured in that document. So I'm just going to show you some of the sort of main ones. Some of them are free, some of them have a little, some are free for 14 days or until the end of June, that sort of thing. But there are a few that are free. So let's start off with free, because we all like a bit of something for nothing. So the first one is online. So this is a website that has loads of different books on it, and most of them have a video that there's then, generally speaking, from the ones that I've looked at, is generally relatively famous that's reading it out. So you can watch the video of them reading the book. You can also download this teacher's guide here. So again, I've not looked at every single book on here, but the ones that I have had a little sort of cheeky look at, in most of them, options for either, you know, language and literacy development or social skills. So they then do have some more specific curriculum activities on there, but most of them that I've looked at have these other options on there, which for us is really handy, because a couple of them have literally been ideas that I could take and just run, do anything other than making up a resource to do them on. I could just literally run with that, and I've got an activity to develop language. So it's really nice. You can just literally click on all books at the top there. And my laptop's being slow because I'm yeah, so it will bring up all the different books. If you want to look at a particular letter of the alphabet, then you can do that. And it is American based, so it talks about grade levels. But I think you can quite easily, when you click on something, you can quite easily figure out whether it might be relevant for somebody on your own caseload. So this is really nice because there's loads of different books, and there's some books I've never even heard of, but have really lovely little stories and stuff. So that's really lovely. So that's Storyline Online. And then another one that I really like is education.com. So again, this is free. You just have to, sign in with your Facebook account or register for a free account. But it has loads of different games that you can access for free. So as an example, I just found this Ending Sounds Cloud Catch game. And it's really, I thought it was quite cute. So I'll start it up and hopefully...
Find the picture that ends with the sound Barn. Barn. Find the picture that ends with the sound k. Bug. Fork. Fork.
So you get the idea. I think just some really cute little games that are free to access to the sort of main library, and you can choose whether sort of the subcategory. So they've got printable worksheets, so great if you're doing any home learning bits, online games, guided lessons, lesson plans, etc. And then they've got some different search options to filter down the side there. But there's absolutely loads of stuff and just tons of these games. So really, really nice, not only for us, but maybe if you're trying to, recommend some things for families to do. It's free, it's easy to access. So that's quite a nice one. I think there are some that are definitely teenagers, Tina. I looked at some the other day, so it's not all sort of like cartoon and illustrated books. Yeah, so if I did remote control to somebody, they could literally be controlling that little character and clicking on the clouds when they hear the sound. Okay, so that's .com. And then the next one that's free, which is also really lovely, is readworks.org. So again, you can log in and just, you can register for an account. It's free. You can, again, filter what you're looking for down the left-hand side here. So I just did a search for princess. And so what happens is, I have to log in, hang on. So now I've logged in and I'm in Princess Lily. Brings up a short story. And then at the top here is the audio.
Princess Lily. Princess Lily lived with her mother and father in a big castle. Life in the castle was
a bit robotic, but beggars can't be choosers. So it's got that on the front page, but then here you've got options to look at vocabulary or question sets. And the question set's quite nice, thinking about comprehension and receptive language, narrative development, blank levels. It gives you some ideas, but also it gives you, oh no, it doesn't give you unless you're a validated teacher, so scrap that. So you can make up your own answers, quite simple to do on a Word document or something, and maybe make it into an activity, or you could make it into like a bit of a matching activity or something. So that's really nice because it gives you some sort of a selection of questions that you can start off with, and then maybe you might build on that, or you might just move on to another. So that's really nice as well. And then thinking about ones that are free for a short time and then you might need to pay for. The first one is boom cards. Can't remember if I've signed up for this or not, so let's just use try and do it with Facebook. Here we are. Okay, so boom cards, they are free access, I think, till the end of June, but the information is here. So all of these web links that you can see on the document there, these are all of the web links for you to be able to download these different boom cards, because they're all currently free. So for example, if we play this categorize common items game, the idea is that it's meant to be motivating, it makes noises, and it's fun and interactive. So which is a fruit? This one. So you put it in the middle and then you click submit. And this one you get the little noise. So you just so on and so forth until you get to the end of the activity. So there are loads available. Yes, you can buy them, but there's lots that are free at the moment. But also, I haven't had time to do it yet, but on the here on the right hand side is a studio, so you can make your own boom cards. And from what I've read, it's meant to be really simple to do. I just haven't had time to look at it yet. But there are lots that are already available, and people are constantly updating sort of ones that they're offering for free during this time. Do they have to load the website themselves to be able to interact with it? No, Rachel. So if I opened up one of these and then I gave remote control access to you, you could literally click on your screen and select the option. So laptop watching me. Anybody else on a laptop right now that I can give remote control to have to demo? Okay, Sammy, you got in there first. Look at you all. Okay, I'm going to go with Sammy just because you were first. Right, I just need to find you. Hang on a minute. Okay, so hopefully, Sammy, you have got control of my screen now. See, this is Sammy. My hands are in the air. I know you can't see me, but I'm waving my hands around like I just don't care. I've got control of my laptop. Oh, look. Can you hear the noise, everyone?
Whoops.
Yeah, well done. So it makes that little whoops noise if you get it wrong, which is quite cute. Oh, that's really good to know. Thank you. So you can send links to parents and they don't need an account, so the link will expire after so long. So, okay, so Sam, an example, and we know that she is really good at verbs. So that's a good outcome from that activity. You're welcome. No, you can give control to somebody that's on an iPad. Imogen, are you on an iPad or are you on a laptop? Kirsty, are you on an iPad? Oh, okay. Who's on an iPad that wants me to try and give them remote control? Give it a go. Okay, right. Bear with. I don't know if you want to turn on your audio and just tell me how to pronounce your name, because I really would hate to mispronounce it. I'm going to give you control. Liz, thank you. I can manage that. So I'm giving my control to Liz. And she's on an iPad. So let's see what happens. Yeah, there we go. Look, so I'm assuming you're literally just using your finger, press on the screen, what have you. Cool. So let me just take you back to the PowerPoint a second. So bear with me. So that's boom cards. I'm going to click off that one anyway for a second. Okay, hopefully you can see the PowerPoint again now. So if I just go back up here, you should be able to see in the top right hand corner here that there's this option on the black bar that comes up when you are using Zoom that says remote control. Really clicked on that just now, and then obviously there was a really long list of everybody that's on here, so I just scrolled down to find the person that I wanted, and then it basically just gives them control, and it will come up with a little message here where this green bar is saying waiting for Liz to take control, and then will obviously touch the screen or whatever and it's activated it, and then you'll see the mouse moving, so you'll know, obviously, as long as you're not holding on to the mouse, that they've got control. And then you just click on that again to abort control. So yeah, you need to, good point, Vanessa, you need to make sure that the screen, so obviously because I'm sharing my screen with all of you, it means that I can select any one of you to give control to. Okay, so back to the website. So the other one that's really good is this Ultimate SLP. So they're giving a 14-day free trial, and then after, that's a good point, Jill. If anyone does have a phone, shout up and I'll not literally type on the chat, and we'll test it on a phone as well. Yeah, so Ultimate SLP. Okay, we'll do it in a tip. They're giving 14 days free trial at the moment, and then after that it's basically about a tenner a month, I think. I think I'm going £10. I'm just going to give it a go because there are some board games that in terms of social skills are pretty nice for a lot of my students, and there's quite a few different themes. But I think you'd want to just have the free trial and have a little play around and see if it has enough in it to warrant paying £10 a month. So I'm just going to pay once and see how much I use it, I think, because I have already used it a fair bit. So you get all these different options again down the left hand side. You can narrow it down, and so I don't know, let's say for example we're going to do this racing board game with sound effects. You literally click on use now and it will load the page. And it will prompt you each time, regardless of the fact that you might have already done the filter down the left-hand side, which I find a little bit bizarre. It will prompt you to select your characters. So I don't know, let's say we're going to have that and that. It will always bring you to this page where you have articulation, language, and social communication to choose from, which is nice because it's literally done it all for you, which is quite useful. So you choose what you want, I don't know, maybe conversational turn taking, and then it will load it. You have your question deck somewhere, which game it's on the left hand side. You'll have a spinner somewhere, which will look like this all the time, and then your character, oh, it's never done that before. Don't know if you all heard that, that was very loud. It'll give you your game pieces that it will automatically put at the start of the game. And so if you're all ready, quite loud, you obviously you'll spin, landed on 6, so then motorbike can move to 6, and answer a question, or maybe you might do it the other way around, whatever. So talk about where you have travelled, stay on topic for at least 3 turns each. Obviously, so on and so forth. You'd spin it again and then the car will go. So I haven't played this one before, but the ones that I have played, we did just sort of, I think, a bit of inferencing, and the cards were, but it didn't have sound effects other than the spinner. So I guess just bearing that in mind, but it did tell us on the main page, didn't it, that it's got sound. So just being mindful again of maybe auditory overload. Okay, so I've got a little video that I share to see if we can share it to you with your phone, Toria. So bear with me while I try and control. Okay. Right, I've given you control. I'm now moving away from the mouse. The mouse is moving. You can see the mouse, but I can't see anything happening. So I'm wondering if it's tricky to do it on a phone. Will it let you move across to spin? Okay, I'm going to abort control, Toria. So maybe you can just comment in the chat with what it was like from your end. It's very fiddly, yeah, I bet it is. I think Raffia SBR N723. So yeah, I thought I was trying to remember from yesterday. I think you're spot on, and that's what we're doing. So we've literally, for everybody so far, I think the parents or carers have said yes to having like a little test run, if you like. I haven't yet had any have to do it on a phone though, to be honest, so I can't really comment on that. But the having the chance to have like a little test run, or to even offer to call them to help them set it up, even just that alone has been really well received, and then it's obviously acted as a bit of a sort of touching base with them during the Easter holidays video call as well, so killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I think that's definitely something to consider doing. Yeah, I was just thinking the same, Toria. So like maybe if it's like a Word document, then obviously I'm guessing it would let you use your phone keypad to write on there or something. So I think definitely doing a practice session would be really useful. Okay, so finished with that that game. So going back to our slides, just going to move on and show you a bit of we've figured out as a team in terms of using Word and PowerPoint and PDFs, because I thought I was all right with technology, you know, not like that great, like I literally, my answer to everything would be turn it on and off and see what happens, but I at least sort of felt confident that I understood Word and PowerPoint semi sort of well. But actually, as it turns out, I really didn't know a lot of stuff. So I feel like I've learned an awful lot in the last few weeks. And PowerPoint is so clever. I'll show you a few of the things that we've figured out, and I'll share some of them I found online and some of them we've made. But I'll share sort of all of them. But it's, yeah, really amazing what it can do. So starting off with Word though, this is ideal because literally on the iPad, the desktop computers, the laptops, I don't know about phones, but I'm hoping it will be the case. It's been really simple to be able to give somebody control and then for them to be able to Word document. It's been really easy. But then there's also loads of features on Word that lend themselves to teletherapy. So there's clip art, you can add in different images from Google really easily or whatever. You can make text boxes, you can add shapes, you can change the colour of them, you can make a table. So many different that you can then use for so many different reasons. So it's really versatile. And then also you could save it as a PDF, which you then might use as a teletherapy resource, but also then again with consent that can become evidence towards the therapy work. So, you know, for example, an EHCP review. So I'm just going to pause. There are loads of ready to go PowerPoint templates that you can then use to edit for your own needs. So I've already saved them in the Google Doc drive that I've set up. So I'll share the link with you for that towards the end. So there's loads of ready to go templates in there. But for many of them, you need to keep them in reading view. So that's this book icon here, which is at the bottom left of the screen, sorry. So for most of them, you keep them in that reading view, which allows you to then manipulate options on the screen. Whereas usually, I guess, when we're doing training and stuff, we might go into presenter view. But so far, I've found that you go into that far less often than reader view. So I'll show you some PowerPoint templates. So some that we've made ourselves like this, and then some that I downloaded and we have started to sort of play about with in our service. So the first one that I'll show you is one that we've done. So here it is. So you've got the first 4 slides where there is a picture that we're going to use to encourage our student to think about 3 what-like words they might use to describe what's in the picture. And then the last 4 pictures related to the first 4, including, you know, this one's the same as the first one, but now we're going to be expecting them to make a sentence, and we've provided some structure and hints with the coloured boxes or clouds. So we could keep this in edit mode and move through the slides as we go, or I might put it into reader view, just use my mouse to scroll down, and so when I get to the sentences in a bit, right now, because I've got it in reader view, I can't see our notes of the suggested sentences that they might make. That's the only difficulty. So you might need to have it printed out and have it beside you if you can't remember what the intention was to see. That's up to you. Also, you might want to leave it in edit mode, because actually, if the student doesn't tell me the sentence that we have put together here as an idea, that means that these are going to need to move. So actually, it's better to leave it in edit mode, because if they're not, that the boy is building a sandcastle on the sandy beach in the afternoon, then I need to be moving this around for what they are going to tell me that hopefully has these different components in it. So a lot of the templates, you keep it in reader view because it still enables you to manipulate things, so like the animations and stuff like that. A lot of the templates that I found and downloaded, that the instructions that came with it, which I've shared on Google Drive, say about keeping them in reader view. So yeah, so that's this one. So it didn't take too much making up. This is a fairly simple one because there's no animations, but it's something that we can add. And you know, if we made another slide now, we can literally copy and paste, select all of these and copy and paste them into the new slide. So we've only got to find a new picture. So it can be, it's not as time consuming compared to some of the other resources that we've been making. So that's one example. And then another example of an activity that we've made is this one. So let me share this with you. So again, if I go into reader view, we've got our sentence at the top, a picture in the middle, and then 2 what-like words to choose from. And so we have set up the animations so that if I click on purple, which is obviously incorrect, it's going to go red. And if I wanted to, I could add a sound onto that as well. If I click on this one, which is correct, it will go green. And if I click on it again, it will then put the word Sandy into the sentence in a cloud. And this has all been done literally through animations. And this is the bit that I think has taken us as a team time to literally learn that you can do that and make sense of it, getting things in the right order, so on and so forth. So this one just sort of goes along like this, and then eventually this sentences get a bit longer and there might be 2 what-like words in there. So again, oh, I need to change that cap. It's interactive. I can give remote control to somebody in the group. I'm going to give control to Kirsty, and then Kirsty can choose whatever option. I am not touching my mouse right now. Kirsty's controlling the screen. She's going to click on the chocolate. It's going to go green, click on it again, and chocolate's gone into the center. I will share all of these with you at the end. So I'm going to get back control now, Kirsty, sorry. Thank you for that. So that's another example. And then obviously we can copy and paste to make duplicate slides. You know, if I wanted exactly the same with this, but just change what's inside these, then I can just make a duplicate of this slide and then just change the content inside. So another one. That we've made is this one here. So this is another activity that we put together to make up sentences. Sorry if you guys can see something. Hopefully you can see the screen okay now. Yeah, so this is different sentences. So who, what doing to what. And if we go into reader view, this is when the good stuff happens. So what I've done is set, and I will show you how I've done this in a moment. I've set it up so that there, I think if I remember rightly, is sound, and also there are motion paths in here, so it makes it a little bit more fun. So who is dancing? Oh, I think it might be the boy, so okay, I'm going to click on it. No, it wasn't him, he's gone, so it must be the girl. Yeah, so she floats off into the correct box. So we'll move on to the next one. So the boy is eating, so that's going to float off into the correct into the box because it's correct. And what I've done is change the settings so that when I move my mouse down now, it will take me straight to the next slide. It won't make this animation do its thing before it lets me move on, if that makes sense. And that's through a particular setting that I've changed. So it will mean I can go straight down. And likewise, the same with this one. It will do what it's going to do to get in the box, and then I can just move straight on. So an example of how I've done that. So let's say, for example, this is our main picture, so it's not very interesting. And maybe we're just thinking the girl, for argument's sake, I haven't got a yellow diamond in here, I'm just going to put the girl is standing. And so I want this one to float off into here. So what I do, I'm just going to move my control panel so you can see where I'm going. So at the top here, what you want to do when you have your PowerPoints open and you're starting to get your head around this is to go into animations and open up the animation pane here, so it will come down the right hand side. And then if you select on a picture that you've got in one of your slides, so you get the format at the top. If you click on that and click on selection pane, it will bring up another panel to the right hand side. And so what happens now is that I've got the picture selected, and let me click off it, so there's nothing highlighted in the selection. But when I select my picture, it will tell me that this picture is picture 10. So what I want to do is click on that and rename it to the girl, because if I then add on 5 more pictures, I'm not going to remember if she's picture 5 or if she's picture 20, but I will know if she's the girl or if she's the dog or if she's a saucepan. So I've named her, and then what I want is for this one to float up into here. So when you go onto animations, you can click on add animation here, the little arrow, and it will bring up all these options. And at the bottom, you've got more motion paths. So if you select that, it brings up all these different of ways that this orange box might move. And so I'm thinking that I might have it curve to the right. So I'm going to select this one, click OK, and then it will bring up this sort of visual so you can see where it's going to end up, and it will have this red arrow. So you want to make sure that you're on that to then be able to pull it up to where you want it to go. So I want it to go into this orange box. So I'm going to do that and click off. And do you know what? I also want some sound. So I'm going to select the box again, and this time I'm going to go into animation pane, and it will highlight which one I'm going to go to this little drop down arrow and go to effect options, and it will give me the option here for sound, and it has a few preloaded options. So I am going to go with explosion, and I can change the volume here, so I'm a little bit louder but not too loud, and click OK, and it will show me what's set to happen. And then actually I don't want is singing, so this is going to be incorrect. Let's imagine I had another yellow option on here, and so actually, because this is incorrect, I want this to go off the screen to indicate to the person that that's incorrect, and they need to try again. So I go back to motion path, and this time I'm going to pick something that's going to then, I can easily go off the screen, which is why you want this grey area around, so you can see how far you need to move it down so that it disappears off the slide. So I'm going to just do a boring down. Again, it brings up 2 boxes with the little red bit, so I need to move it down so it goes off the screen completely. And I'll add a sound to it. So I'll again go to the drop down, effect options, and this time let's have the bomb. And so then when I go to reader view and I've got my student on the other end and this is all finished and, you know, properly sorted out, and they click on this, it's going to go into the correct box or off the screen and make the sound up to the. And so in terms of sort of like making something motivating, fun, anticipating something different on every slide, because they've all been set to do different things. So for example, this one has been set so that if I select the door, then that's going to go crazy, but if I select the leaves, it's going to go up serenely into the green box. So, you know, something different for every single slide. So that's sound effects, motion paths. And then the thing that I did to make sure that it wasn't going to force me to have every animation going off before it would let me move slides is this is the picture on the slide that is incorrect. So if they get the bus straight away, I don't want the plane to have to fly about. I just want to go straight to number 6. So I highlight the picture, go back to the little arrow under the animation pane, go back to options, and then on timing, you have this little grey box here that says triggers. Usually there's nothing underneath it until you click on it, and then you get these options come up. And so you want to select start effect on the click of, and then group 6 refers to plane images that are under the selection pane here. So that's another reason why it's useful to rename your options so that I know this is the plane image, so therefore group 6 is correct, because group 6 on its own, I have no idea what that means. And so I set it to only go off if group 6 is clicked. Okay. So if my student is not going to click on this one, that animation is not going to go off, and I'm not going to be forced to make it go off, if that makes sense. Let me just check. Oh, I'm glad you think that they're useful for face-to-face as well. How do you make it conditional for whether on the button or not? Have I just explained, Jill? That is, yeah. Okay, yes, I have. Cool. So we got some symbols, and I'm not 100% sure if it's a bit naughty or not, but you have a snipping tool on your laptop. So we have some resources that we downloaded, say, you know, from Twinkle, for example, and so you can snipping tool out the picture that you want, maybe from a picture scene, and then we've just copied it into the PowerPoint slide. Might be a little bit naughty, I'm not sure. It is a bit dodge, you know, needs must and all that. So yeah, so that's quite a fun one, and I'm looking forward to doing that. The only thing I would say, and it's just my sensory integration hat on, is just to be mindful of the different sounds and the volume, I guess, and pre-warning the student that there's going to be sounds in this and they might be random, because that could be a bit of a shocker for some of them. Let me have a look at, so this one that I cannot take the credit for this. our speech and language therapy assistant has made this, and it has taken her hours. However, I've already sweet talked her with the wine when we're finally allowed to go back to the pub, and Maltesers, and it's okay to share this with you. So this is a pairs game, like a matching activity, and we found a few templates for it beforehand, but we could not get them to work. And then she found another template and instructions and finally figured it out. So I think I've included the instructions in the Google Drive that I'm going to use. So if you want to make your own, then you can, and by all means feel free to email it to me to share. But you can also have a copy of this. So again, go into the reading view, ignore how it looks at the moment, go to view, and it will bring up how you want the student. So it's a matching activity. You could add sound to it if you want, but we haven't for this one. And we're going to take it in turns to turn over 2 cards each. No, they don't match, so we'll turn them back over. Try again. Oh yeah, okay, so I've got a pair. So then the next person's going to have a go. Oh, look at that. So you get the gist. And yeah, you could sound, and that would be quite nice, I guess. So yeah, that's a nice activity. And obviously, you know, once you've figured out how you make it with all the animations and stuff, there's no reason why you couldn't obviously step it up or down by having more or less images to choose from. So that's that one. And then some of the ones that I downloaded, I'm going to just show you some of those now. So there's this one that's quite nice. So the template that they provide for you gives you, cues you in to know which one you need to put the correct answer in. So I don't know, let's think of a question. Who potentially a bit controversial, but who delivers presents at Christmas? So let's say postal worker, Santa, or the dentist. And so it's been preset. You know, if this was colourful semantics, I might make that orange or whatever, but you can change it around, but it's preset so that then when you go into reading view and the student clicks on the option that they're choosing, so, you know, let's imagine to this, and they click on the postal worker, it's been set to go this pinky red colour and to make this noise. But if they click on the correct answer, that's been set to do something different. So again, you've got the sound and the colour to help cue them in, but also to sort of add in that element of surprise and anticipation, make it interactive, and sort of hopefully hold their attention a little bit more. So the template for this is in the folder that I'm going to share with you. And then also there's this one that is called so I've just sort of set it up with a bit of a Peter Pan theme, and I haven't changed any colours or anything right now, but again, as much as it can be about concepts or whatever it is you've decided to write in the different boxes, is also social skills, turn taking, joint attention, and working towards the same goal. And you know, as you take it in turns and explore the different options that you've written in here, and once they've done it, you select one. it will clear it. It's been set up so that there are boats behind, and it will make noise for the relevant, it will make noise of them, and then see the image behind, find all of the boats, or ships, whatever. So if you've got somebody that's motivated by sort of the sea and boats and ships, the navy or submarines or whatever, this might be quite a nice theme, and you can play around with this and have it kitted out with whatever speech or language work you want to do. So again, that one is in the and then this is the one that you saw us do with Freya, where we unsuccessfully tried to get her to write a sentence. And so again, this one is set up so that they change colour. So in order to do that, if you select one of them and go into animation, you see here it says effect options, and you can see green. So therefore this one is correct, and it's going to go green when it's selected. Whereas if I go on to this one, it's now changed to red, showing me that this one has been preset to be incorrect. And again, if I wanted to add sound to it, then I could do that in the same way that I did earlier. And so when you then go into reading view and you're thinking about all of the what like words that you could use to describe a dog, you click on Spotty, it's going to go green, but purple, it's going to go red, because generally speaking, dogs aren't purple. They're not usually hot unless you don't eat it. And they might, you can see how that's been set up, and that's relatively simple to make if you just draw in the shapes, add in the text, and then do the effect option for it to change colour. That's quite a quick PowerPoint, I guess, to generate for various different activities. In terms of this sentence thing, I'll do that in a second when we look at PDFs. But what I would do is PDF maybe one of these or two of these slides that I then I'm going to use to get somebody to write a sentence through PDF and the annotation tools that are built into that. So I'll show you that in a moment. Yes, please, Vanessa. I literally didn't say about it because we're having our video chat with you on Thursday. So yes, that's absolutely fine. Would you mind if I do that at the moment? In a moment. Cool. Okay. So then, thinking about so they allow you to comment and annotate on them depending on the permissions. So I have an example here of a Twinkle worksheet. So I pay for a Twinkle account, and I downloaded this thinking it would be a really great rhyming activity for some phonological awareness work that I'm doing with a student. However, the permissions for this document mean that I can't do it unless I guess I were to snipping tool something and it happened to then be copied and pasted into a Word document or something. But we're not going to do that right now. So just be mindful that what I'm about to show you might not happen, might not work because of the permissions that the author has put onto the PDF. So going back to this one, so this is something that we made, again, literally just with the text boxes. So you have all these options down the right hand side, and this yellow one here is for comment. If you click on it, it will bring up a new bar at the top when my laptop captures. So you've now got all these different options across the top here. And so if I give control to forward speech therapy, and I'm saying to you know, picture, who is in the picture? Could you write down who is in the picture? Perfect. The children are in the picture. And so either, I guess, the person that's got control, or select the box, you can move it, you can extend it, you can change the font colour and size and everything. You saw the box that came up when the typing was going on here, look. So you can change all of that like you would in another document. You can make it bold, on these different things. But also you can use different shapes for things. So this circle or oval shape, if I select that, I have it preset that for now that I want it to draw a green circle. And how I did that is that when I selected this, I then went to this little colour sign here. If I click on that, in the right hand top corner here, you can click on settings. If you bring that up, it will bring up, you can choose the colour, whether it's going to have a fill colour in it or not, thickness, etc. And at the bottom here, in the bottom left corner, you can select to make the properties default. So then it means it will remember this, so that each time, for now anyway, until I change it, my circle will be this green thickness, and it will be clear in the middle. And so if I want to ask somebody to draw a circle around the little girl in the with a yellow waistcoat on, I literally can select that, give them control, and they can draw a circle around the appropriate. And so if I then wanted to take a screenshot of this piece of work that the student's done, I can do that through the Zoom annotation tool, or I could save this as a new version of a PDF. And then equally, I might have a couple of pages on this PDF down to the next activity. So you might want to get rid of all of these annotations before you do that. So in order to do that, you want to click on the yellow comment box again, so that it brings up just wait for mine to catch up. It brings up the sidebar. And what you'll have is all of the different annotations down this column here. And so you literally just select the ones that you want to delete, and then literally click the delete button on your laptop, and it will get rid of all of them and get rid of it off the screen. And then you can just minimize that again, and you've got your template back to how it was before. So that's really helpful to have all of these different options. But like I say, it won't necessarily bring all of these options up if the permissions don't allow you to annotate on a PDF. So you just need to be mindful about that. So thinking about assessments, Pearson's are offering 3 months free access to over 100 assessments on Q Global. I have been in touch with them, and I'm waiting to get my login information or whatever it is. It's been a little bit of a lengthy process and not that easy to achieve. Speak to somebody from Pearson's, but I think once sorted, that's going to be really helpful for us in this moment in time. So it'll be access to over 100 different assessments, including the KELF. And there is research to suggest that you can reliably use the KELF through Teletherapy. So that's positive. But we might also encounter some sort of difficulties in using some of our usual go-to assessments when we're doing it through Teletherapy. So just a couple of different thoughts on the slide there of other ways that we might get assessment information. So we might get parents or carers to video the client, show you through screen share, or maybe they might email the clips over. You might use downloadable resources from different websites, and then the snipping tool to make your own informal resources. For me, our college is going to be using remote learning and using Zoom and whatnot to do classroom sessions. So there's every child could, with consent, join one of those sessions, and so I could make observations of the student through that remote learning platform. And then obviously we have various questionnaires, formal and informal, to hand that we may be able to gather information through and rely on maybe a little bit more during this time. Okay, so I think Vanessa, if I unmute you, or you can probably unmute yourself, do you want to just tell everybody a little bit about Simplify?
Yeah, more than happy.
Yeah.
I've just put a little, can everyone hear me? Not that I can see anybody, 1 second.
Yeah, they're all right, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so I've just put a little summary on the chat of what Simplify is. Basically, I'm an SLT in the UK. My partner's a web developer, and we, about a year ago, we launched Simplify, which is so it's an online toolkit for speech and language therapists. It's a database of widget symbols, 24,000 symbols. You can search them using all manner of different linguistic tools. So you can search for different semantic categories, different phonemes, phonemes in particular word positions. You can search for words by number of syllables, all manner of things, and you can combine them as well. So you can do really specific searches to find your target words. And then once you've made your list of words, you can put them into various games. So we've got a card game, which literally just turns your symbols into a pack of cards that you can play with on the screen. So you can do whatever you like with them. So it's really flexible, and you can, there's all manner of stuff you can do with that. We've got a few YouTube videos. I've put a link to one of the videos on the chat, but that's definitely a good place to start to get a feel for what it offers. There's also an auditory discrimination game and a categories game, and they're all really customizable. So you can create a categorizing game for any kind of category, not just semantic categories. It could be, again, sorting things by syllable number or by rhyme or all manner of things. So it's very kind of flexible, and you can adapt it to the needs of each client that you work with. It's free for 30 days, so you can sign up for a trial. You just go to simplify.co.uk, and it's Simplify with SY, like a symbol, just to confuse people. And yeah, you can do 30-day free trial, and then it's $5.99 a month, and there's discounts for if you do an annual subscription or if you're in a team. The YouTube link that I've put on is just for a very short kind of overview video, but there's a video I posted about a week ago that's a full training on everything you can do on Simplify. It's about a 40-minute video, and there's also a quick, it's like 5 or 6 minutes video on how to use it with Zoom, so it will tie in a lot with the things that Kate's shown us tonight, hopefully. So yeah, that's Simplify in a nutshell. Hopefully that was quick enough.
Thank you, Vanessa. I mean, me and our team are having Vanessa on Thursday, where she's going to sort of talk us through some bits, and I already have Simplify account and I really like it, but I need to get my head around more of the features, because I am definitely going to be using it a lot, because it is brilliant, and it looks so good, like it looks inviting, just is. So yeah, I think if you haven't looked at it, definitely do.
Well, thank you. And if anybody else wants to do a Zoom session, I'm doing a session with Kate and her team on Thursday. If anybody else wants to kind of chat to me over Zoom to go through anything, just drop me an email. The contact things on the website, so you can find me on there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vanessa.
Right. I'll mute myself now.
Thank you. Okay, so before I quickly touch on the evidence base, I just wanted to share with you this website, which I'm hoping you can see my browser here, Squirrels, and they do this Reflector 3 what's it called, application, I suppose. So there's a free 7-day trial, and then I haven't looked at how much it is for ongoing use. It's a set amount, you just pay a one-off sort of amount of money. But I just wanted to show it to you in case anybody was having to use their iPad or maybe their mobile phone to look at or share maybe some paper resources that they might have at the side of them. So once you've downloaded this, you should hopefully you can all see on my desktop that I've got this Reflector Teacher box up, and I've got my iPad next to me, and if I pull down from the top right hand corner of the iPad, it gives you the option, all the different options, and I click on screen, it will bring up my laptop code, which is on the screen here, and it will link to my iPad, so that now you guys can see my iPad. So I could share what's on my iPad through screen share, and it will automatically flip depending on what the app is. So I've just clicked on dots and it needs it to be in portrait, so it's automatically changed it, but I've got my iPad in landscape, and so you can share different things on your iPad, but equally also have something that becomes a document camera. So for example, this is my dog. He looks really dirty there, sorry, but I could show you, I don't know what the copyright is, but for example the talc there, I might have that or something beside me that I can then share with you really easily. And then to get rid of it, you just click on this X here. So I'm just having a play around with this at the moment to decide whether it's worth investing. But a cheaper way of making a document camera would be to literally, as you can now see on this picture, you could literally use your phone. Somehow they've used baked beans or whatever here, somehow sort of prop it up so it's looking down at whatever you want to share, and then you would join into the Zoom phone. So that's a really simple sort of makeshift way of doing it that doesn't cost anything. So I just thought I would share that because it's quite helpful for things that we can't make into the Teletherapy resource. So just to finish off thinking about the evidence, so generally the broad take-homes are that there's not a lot of telehealth research, which, you know, let's face it, our profession, still emerging, it's still growing, but there is some evidence. It's just that technology has moved on faster than policy and science. A lot of the research is with parents and parent coaching. It's with children that are 5 or older. Predominantly there's research when they're 8 and over, and a lot of them, over half of the studies are on adults, according to a systematic review that was done in 2015. So there's a lot of evidence that's been completed with certain populations in comparison to others. Traumatic brain injury, autism, hearing loss, dementia, fluency and speech sound disorders have all been researched a lot more compared to dysphagia, pediatric speech and language, and then language disorders in school-age children. However, the research does tell us that there are positives to delivering to teletherapy. So they found that it's improved access to care, there's been fewer missed appointments, it's more cost effective, and actually patients, clients have been really satisfied with the service. And on the infographic that I shared, I think it was, I want to say 0.9% of participants in one study didn't telehealth was more advantageous, but actually most people did, and the outcomes have been researched, and they found that, generally speaking, outcomes are similar to what you would expect from face-to-face therapy. So even though it is still emerging and there's definitely more research needed, what we do know is positive, and it is sort of good to know in terms of the fact that we've sort of had a lot of this forced on us with the current situation, and so that's kind of reassuring, isn't it, I guess, to know that even though it's limited, that there is research, the outcomes are positive, that it's enjoyed by people. So I think I mentioned this earlier, that some of the researchers has talked about what helps to make it successful in terms of co-regulating, but some of the other skills that research suggests we need to have in order for it to be successful are verbal communication skills, knowledge of the evidence base, how good we are at problem solving and how comfortable we are with technology, and then the piece that we talked about earlier in terms of co-regulating. So yeah, I think on the whole it's limited, but it's what is there is positive and helps us during this time where it's all very new. So are there any questions? I'll have a look through chat. One thing that I forgot to mention is there was a seminar run by I think she's a speech language pathologist who did a webinar on AAC, and I haven't watched it yet, but I need to, because I've got 2 students that I need to do some assessment work with. So I think it will be quite helpful. I've had feedback about it. So if anybody who works with AAC hasn't looked at it yet, she's called Rachel something. I'll have to have a look for her. But the webinar is just freely available on YouTube. So if I can find the information, I'll tweet about it later. Just looking through the questions. You're welcome. Yeah, that's a really good idea, Kate. I was thinking about that earlier because somebody tagged me in a tweet for a resource they've been making since the first time I did this webinar last week. And I was thinking it would be really helpful if we had maybe a hashtag. Before you all go, I need to share the link to the Google page. So bear with me while I do that. Okay, I've shared the Google Drive link, and I will be adding some more resources into that now that I've done the second webinar.